my name's Edward Nevill, and I'm going to talk about what we're doing with OpenJDK. And I really like some of the demos that Steve and Nashikut have put together, showing Hadoop 6 clusters. But what you don't see is Hadoop's a bit like a duck. I know it's an elephant, but it's actually a duck. But underneath that duck, OpenJDK is paddling away like mad there. So it's good to see that. Okay, so since Hong Kong, we've now moved all the development upstream, okay? So there's a single source at OpenJDK JavaNet, JDK9, and all the issues are tracked by Jira issues in bugs.openjdk.java.net. So you can go there, search for issues relating to AR64, and you'll see a complete list of all the issues, optimizations, bug fixes that we're doing. A bit more formal now, so all changes require formal review. So one reviewer for ARM64 only changes, 2 reviewers for any changes outside the ARM64 parts. So more formality, we have to file the issues, we have to get them reviewed. Slows the development cycle, but does contain a lot of benefits. One of the most major is no more merging, so that's great. JDK8 is still in an upstream branch, so it's in a project area on OpenJDK JavaNet. And then we backport bug fixes and optimizations about monthly from JDK9 to JDK8. Now, changes from JDK8 are then merged in from the JDK8 update projects, update 20, update 40, update 60 into the AR64 port. So on JDK8 side, we still have to do the merging. Andrew Haley is actually setting up an automated system to do the merges nightly, so it'll be great when we have that done. JDK7, well, JDK7 has been end-of-lifed by Oracle, so it's continued support in ICT by Red Hat, and bug fixes from JDK9 merged in there typically every 3 to 6 months. There are 2 trees there. There's a development tree, and then there's the release tree, which is controlled by Andrew Hughes. So myself and Andrew Haley and Andrew Din work on the development tree, and then he merges them into the release tree. Okay, so we provide monthly OpenJDK engineering builds, and the aim of this is to provide a stable monthly build of JDK 7, 8, and 9. And those are all available at openjdk.linaro.org. We've recently set up a mailing list for anything to do with Linaro OpenJDK, so we'll make the announcements of when the builds are available on that mailing list. Generally, the engineering builds are exactly what are upstream. Sometimes I will put in a patch on the engineering build if I discover something critical when I'm doing the release. They're not a substitute for the full release in distros, okay? They are engineering builds, they're not packaged, so they don't have any dependencies, they're just a tarball. You have to untar it, you have to make sure you've got all the correct dependencies installed yourself. They don't have the security certificates, and they may depend on specific versions of libraries. So obviously the one tarball is not going to work on Trusty, Vivid, across Red Hat Enterprise Linux, across all the different distros. But in general, Java's pretty good about being portable across distros, especially if you're just using it in headless mode, if you're not actually using the graphical interfaces. Overnight testing, okay, currently we're running a Jenkins instance and it's hosted in the Lava Lab, and we're currently testing on JDK8. Goal is to move this to ci.linaro.org for JDK8 and JDK9. And there's a card out for that work to be done in builds and baselines. At the moment, the results are mailed out to the mailing list and published to openjdk.linaro.org. I don't know quite how that's going to work when it moves to ci.linaro.org, but I would hope that we can continue to publish the results in this way. So here's a list of what we do on the builds. So 2 builds, client and server, and then 4 test suites. So we build the client and server, it takes about half an hour, then run the JTreg test suite, JC stress, SpecJBB 2013 and Hadoop. So those last two are just performance tests, checking that we're not getting any performance regressions. Total runtime on that is greater than 19 hours on one of our member boards. One of the advantages when we do go to ci.linaro.org is that we will be able to move it to different member boards so we can check for problems on different boards. Yeah. Okay, so there's been two main threads of development. One is the optimization and enhancement, and the other is bug fixing and maintenance. This is covered by two cards in our project system, leg 23 and leg 24. And then individual issues are tracked in the OpenJDK Jira issue, so you can go there and see them. So we're not, at the moment, tracking those in projects.linaro.org. I don't know if that's something we're going to address or not. We're looking at it, yes. Yep. One of the areas that we can help members is by sponsorship. So we can work with members to sponsor patches to OpenJDK, and two of our members are currently contributing patches. We're obviously a signatory to the Oracle Contributor Agreement, and we have commit privileges to JDK 9. So we can work with members to fast-track patches in and improve the chance of those patches being accepted rather than that if they have to sort of go blind into the OpenJDK community. So all the patches are still subject to review by OpenJDK reviewers, so generally somebody at Oracle has to review them and check they're okay. But if the patch is coming from known people in Linaro, it's much more likely to get in. Okay, and here's a list that's not complete, but of optimizations we've been working on. So adding support for ghash acceleration, so that's an extension to AES. Adding support for hardware CRC32C, which is the Castagnoli method. It's a different form of CRC. Support for population count using the bit count instructions. Support for 64-bit vectors. Some tuning work on the cache size, vectorization support for rewriting frequent pairs in the interpreter. Some work to improve register usage, so making the frame pointer available as a general purpose register. And some work to cater for different partner implementations. So at the moment, what we do is we read proc CPU info to discover the processor information, and then we can use that information to tailor stuff for different partners. There has been a patch put into the kernel that will allow us access to the CPU info without grepping proc CPU info, which is not the cleanest way to do it. And then maintenance and bug fixes, well, we have an ongoing list of bug fixes. The most recent one reported by Steve when he was doing the Spark work. And that was just fixed in the 15.08 release, and I'm pleased that Steve hasn't come back with any more, so I think it's all working good now. Yeah, it certainly looks good. And I'm not going to go through the details of these, but there's a list of them. You go to bugs.openjdk.java.net. You can see what we're working on. Okay, that's all I have to say. Questions?
So what's the difference for JDK 8? What's the difference between the Oracle version and the OpenJDK, the branch?
Yes. So I'll repeat the question. What's the difference between the Oracle version of JDK 8 and the OpenJDK version of JDK 8? The Oracle version of JDK 8 is a completely separate tree maintained by Oracle. So it's not open source. They maintain that. They produce their own version of JDK 8. We produce everything, of course, in OpenJDK, open source, so that everybody can contribute and everybody can see what's going on. Does that answer the question? Or
this is the case only for ARM, right? Because as I know, for x86, the Oracle use the same source chain as the OpenJDK.
Yes, I mean, there has been a long history of Oracle producing separate releases for ARM and not putting that source code into OpenJDK.
Do they have a plan to,
I can't comment on Oracle's plans to open source their JDK or not. Maybe is there anybody from Oracle present?
Any other questions around Java, OpenJDK?
Okay, thanks. I have a question about, have you tested the performance from for the Oracle JDK to the OpenJDK? Which is better? ARM64.
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, it was which provides the better performance for Hadoop on ARM64, Oracle JDK or OpenJDK? Is that a fair summary of your question?
Yes.
Okay. OpenJDK compares very favorably with Oracle JDK. We are very pleased. I can't give you performance figures, okay? Yeah, so.
Yeah, so here's what you can do. I highly recommend you get both and try it yourself. And I think you'll like the open source development model.
Okay, I will try it. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, please, if you guys could give a hand to Ed Nevill.
Okay, thank you.